Good afternoon. Welcome to Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, public meeting of the Kingston City Land Bank's Communication, Community Engagement, and Fundraising Committee. My name is Mike. I serve as the moderator. We ask members of the public to limit their comments no more than 2 minutes per speaker. And with that, I turn it over to the committee chair, Mr. Bartek, to start out.
Okay, thanks. So we just let's see, the next item, or our first item, is one of the follow-ups from the last meeting was Rebecca was going to go back to our social media RFP and maybe suggest some next steps or thoughts, given that we rejected both respondents. Rebecca, do you have any thoughts or suggestions? Yeah. And you're muted.
So the computer just told me. Yes, I have some thoughts. They're perhaps more global than particular. So I think given some of the projects that we have coming forward and the size and magnitude of some of the work that we're looking forward to doing, that we might want to reconsider what we're looking to hire, and that it might be time to create a position that's a combination of communications director and assistant to Mike to handle, and the board actually, to handle calendaring, to create communication relationships with specific people in town, to follow continuity of message, to craft message, not just to do social media. I feel like the organization might grow, the requirements of communication and collaboration with the community might outgrow the hands that we have to do it, while we're also doing so much larger projects as well, some of which are different or could be different than things that we've done before, and also might include deeper and new kinds of engagement with the city, with community, with things like that. So that's what I'd like to suggest that we discuss, whether we discuss it here or at some other time. And what would that envision? That would envision thinking a little bit about what a communications director / Mike's assistant might do. I would also advocate for growing someone up with the organization, which might mean hiring a newer person with a communications degree, for instance, who we could find a specific mentor for them that might be not a board position, but a volunteer to the Kingston City Land Bank position for 6 months or something. And that person would develop their understanding of the communications, the story, the narrative, all of those things firsthand, as opposed to coming in with ideas about it. So yes, perhaps there are reasons to know, to come in with a lot of knowledge about the land bank, but I would actually think that there are equally substantive reasons to come in a little fresher, with a fresher point of view. And my dad was in advertising, and he said he would always rather train a copywriter than get a writer who thought they knew what they were doing. And that also that there are a lot of reasons for that, but I think it would even be an interesting conversation with someone who is relatively new to the sector, to talk about what are the communications challenges that surround anything from urban planning to what the Kingston City Land Bank does, and what kind of communication is successful and things like that. So that's my thought. And that we would get really more value for the dollar by having someone who was committed to the organization more deeply, rather than being just one of the bananas on their bunch, So those are my thoughts.
Does anyone have any feedback?
I think there could be a lot of value in having a more recent like graduate or lower, I don't want to say inexperienced, but someone who is seeking to gain more experience join and
It's an entry level.
yeah,
Entry level.
yeah, entry level, yes. I think that could be an option. The only concern is that the team is so lean that there also could be a benefit to someone having more experience, being a little bit more seasoned and just taking it and running with it.
Well, maybe we want to deal with, or I guess I would think about, do we want to talk about, I mean, I'm actually talking about a full-time position with developing. Yeah, I'm talking about full-time position, developing tasks or job, whatever you call them, that include assisting Mike with the thousands of pieces of communication that he has to do both on a smaller and a larger level, as well as calendaring and things like that. So that I just, my heart says that there's going to be a moment where Mike is running from pillar to post all the time without, and that's going to be distressing for us, stressful for Mike, and maybe not the most efficient thing. And that having someone who is interested or has a communications major, is interested in crafting, a career in communications, or has a new career in communications, but is also interested in or willing to be also a little bit of a jack of all trades, or a Jones of all trades. I don't know. Looking for a gender-free word. So that might be worthwhile. I just think we're going to need somebody, and I think it might be a good time to do that. It's completely out of my it's certainly out of my purview to say that we're going to need somebody going forward. That would be for Mike to say, and I think Mike would be hesitant to say that he needed help. That's a projection of my part. But I think Mike's committed to a lean and mean organization so that all of our funds can go towards supporting the community. However, given some of the things we've already discussed today, having a very consistent, clear, crafted message that is in the hands of more than one person and not being administered by the board might also be a really helpful thing for us going forward, right? These are substantive grants, substantive projects with a lot of community engagement that, and it's complicated to explain. But once you get it, you get it. Mike doesn't have to be the only person who stands up in front of people and says this, somebody else can read the party line. So Barbara, that's what I'm talking about. Somebody full-time who is charged with both communications, social media tasks, and also with whatever Mike considers appropriate other tasks to keep the organization targeted, on time, communicating clearly, things like that. So it would be a slightly unusual combination of things, but not completely unusual. You know what I mean? So that's what I meant. Is that more clear?
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, okay, good. I just want to make
not
sure.
ready to respond on that yet.
I think we just have to get aligned on the scope. We turned down the responses we got for the RFPs, I think in part because we felt like and maybe it's something we can reconsider in the future for social media, but at least from my perspective, I think we turned down the responses we got in part because we felt like, well, maybe this isn't something we really need right now. This sort of goes beyond what is really necessary to the organization at this point. And so I'm not sure if the response to that is, well, let's go completely the other direction and bring in a full-time staff person to handle communications.
I understand that it's got a radical idea. I mean, I did run it by some people to talk it through because it's not an extension of the original idea. Right? So it's a little bit, it's not grafting off the same tree. But given my somewhat unique perspective, the only person that goes to more housing meetings right now is Bartek. So I'm giving the, maybe not the only person, but because I'm like in 3 different places in the housing community right now in Kingston, it just seems to me that the communication is complicated, and that there's a heightened sensitivity to some of those communications that could create very sticky wickets, which is a cricket illusion that I never really understood, but could create real places where we can't keep the ball moving because somebody in the community, for instance, was taken by surprise by something that we were doing, and they might have been in complete support of that. But it can't be, because now they didn't understand going forward. So that to me is a highly invested, consistent, overall overarching communications plan about what we're doing going forward. And I don't think we can afford to hire someone who just does that, nor do I think we can afford to hire someone who just helps Mike. So my question is whether or not we can bring those things together, and also to give Mike a chance to relax into having someone helping them, because when you don't have an assistant, it can take a while to get used to that, so I'm really just trying to look forward. So maybe what I'm suggesting is, rather than adjusting just this RFP, that at a larger board meeting or at some sort of mini Zoom retreat or something,
Or the next budget. Sorry to interrupt. Yep.
Yeah, that we just take a look at what do we think we're going to need overall as the organization gets larger and as the projects get more complicated.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a better way to get at it. Sorry, I'm done.
I actually like this idea a lot. I think it's like and Mike, I'd be curious to hear about your thoughts in particular, but I think it makes sense in terms of the evolution of the organization. And right, this isn't just, we're not just looking for someone to do social media. It's all manner of communications and engagement events, right? It's someone that could actually focus on that. And also maybe, subtask, right? Just some operational stuff.
So like a chief of staff role?
Sure. Yeah.
Or coordinator,
Yeah.
communications and project coordination or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something that if it's like entry level, depending on what kind of candidate we would be looking for, right? Mike, do you have any thoughts?
So I'm just trying to process this, just learning about it. So I don't have any knee-jerk reaction thoughts to it. I appreciate people thinking about the future for sure. I'll just say that.
So maybe we can just, maybe we can come back with, maybe I could have a day in the life with Mike, Zoom conversation or a cup of coffee or lunch or something. And you could just talk me through what you do, right? And what we think we're going to be doing more of, right? Or whoever that is, right? Like, how are things going to expand? And then, or whoever wants to do that. But that would be the process. I'm suggesting a process, which is A, understanding how is the work going to expand, and B, what do we think a wholehearted communications agenda might be for us,
Could I instead make a different suggestion?
Sure, of course.
Because I think you have a really good idea of what you imagine this to look like, that maybe if you're willing to draft up some kind of almost like a job description of what you think this would be, because it might be easier for us to talk about it and think about it if we have a better understanding of what you're envisioning.
I need an hour with Mike or an hour or so. So in order to do that, I need time with you, Mike.
I'm happy to talk to you. I just would like to understand a little bit more of the scope of what we're discussing. From like a assist Mike type of position, you are correct in that I will say I don't feel like I need that right now. But I appreciate you thinking of it, because maybe there are gaps that I'm not looking at that the board would wish me to be doing more of X, Y, and Z. So, but
Yeah, I mean, why don't we just talk? I mean, it has more to do with what is
Sure.
6 months down the road? What does a year from now look like? You know, what do we look like when we've embraced Third Avenue? How can we anticipate that rather than be surprised by it? And then from a communications point of view, and then also to what extent do you think that will expand the work? Yeah. I think we'll be sorry if we don't have someone in place who has a sense of, or we haven't thought through how we address the overall communications of the plants going forward. And I don't want Mike I don't want you to be caught off guard in terms of doing things so that when you're doing something else, right? I don't want you to be pulled off. I don't want us, like I said before, I don't want us to get stuck somewhere because we haven't thought through the whole thing. So that's all I'm saying. I hope that you don't think this is a critique. I think it's an extraordinary amount of funding coming forward, an extraordinary amount of work coming forward, and in a very highly sensitized environment, and that having a thoughtful approach to a long-term communications plan, which I think is quite different, Mike, than you and I thought about originally, right? Like way different after when we talked about the retreat and stuff like that. And Nate, I'm glad to try it. I'm not anybody's official in this.
I think that the Kingston, I'm just looking up. I don't know if they have this position anymore, but the Kingston Land Trust had a communications and administrative steward. So there it was sort of like some comms and operations wrapped into one position.
Why don't I bother Bartek first, and then maybe I can bother the land trust people, and attend myself to what Nate wants to do, which is what might that be? I just don't have an operations overview, which would be helpful, but I can steal someone else's.
Okay. Great. Anyone have any more comments on that or thoughts? Okay. All right. I'm sorry, I'm just looking over some of these names that Mike just added. So the name for our next construction round, does everyone have the list open? Here, let me share the screen.
Where did the Phoenix come from, or the Reditus? Are those like names based on something? I'm just curious.
this all came up during the ADC meeting, Nate. So, for context,
Reditus is the Latin word for Renaissance or revival.
Okay, got it.
That it's in common use for, that kind of thing. I wouldn't use ARPA. Is this for public use or for internal use?
Public.
Public. I wouldn't use ARPA because it would connect us to that, connect us too tightly to ARPA as programs. I mean, we're not working for ARPA, are we?
That was my suggestion, Rebecca, just for an internal tracking thing. I just put it in the list. It helps us internally identify things, from finance, and differentiates it from the other projects.
So I'm confused then, what are we doing, internal or external?
I just put it on this list because that was the internal use that we're using. So for completeness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we're voting or trying to select a name for the external communications, not the land trust project. I don't like that one.
That was just a joke.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the one thing I was thinking about with these 6, right, is that I mean, similar to all the other ones, right? They're all over the city, and you know, um, if there was something that could encapsulate all that work. I kind of like the pathway prosperity properties. PPP.
I was looking at language from our mission statement, okay?
Okay, I liked it. Well, I was
And
saying I like it.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying
That's
to
the one
challenge
that
it.
stands out for me personally. If we
But
wanted to play with that.
it's open to edits, comments, like other ways to, or it could be prosperity pathway. I don't know. The Phoenix, because like rising from the ashes, that could be like to give them, like, you breathe new life into these buildings, so kind of like the Phoenix Kingston projects too.
Yeah, I like those ones.
I mean, I like the home 6 ones mostly because they don't promise prosperity. Because they also, they also point to how many houses we're working on with this funding, so I like those. Or, I just think revive and thrive is, one of the problems in talking about some of the things that we do a lot of working with and talking about is that sometimes I think we imply that the community is unhealthy, right? This is like the struggle with what do we call the city core, right? In all different kinds of cities and all different kinds of projects, right? And there's there can be a kind of outflow from that of judgment. The homes themselves are in need of revival. The community itself perhaps is, I don't personally want to make a judgment about that. So having the revival part of it have to do with the homes themselves, the houses, right? So revive and thrive has an implication that Kingston's not thriving, right? To me, or could be seen that way. That's where one of the things that Barbara pulled out with Pathway to Prosperity in the mission statement is our bilateral commitment to home ownership in these projects that leads to equity, so that kind of makes sense. But so I was, something.
Okay. Well, we don't need to come to a decision today, unless anyone has any strong preferences or Any
I
other
mean, there
ideas? I
isn't,
highlighted in green some of the ones that were just mentioned in the discussion.
and there isn't a geographic location that unites them of any kind, right?
No, and I mean, in fact, I would argue like that's their defining feature is that they're everywhere, or all across the city, right? Gill, Grand, Hasbrook, Chapel, Abbey, Stefan. So not uptown properties, not uptown, but otherwise they're kind of all across the city.
What if you put Kingston in your Project Homecoming, whoever typed that? Like Project Kingston Homecoming or Project Kingston City Homecoming or
There we go. How about that? I don't know. That was one that just popped in my head. I like all these ones that we're honing in on though.
they have what? I'm sorry.
I like all the ones where we're coming up with a short list. And I think they sound pretty good.
I like Homecoming, the Homecoming one.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I think you should make that green.
Okay, I'm gonna make it green. I'm gonna make it the darkest shade. Is that?
Yeah, bolded green.
We could do another doodle poll by email.
Okay, well, I'll
Just
send that,
like-
or I'll send this around to the entire board. But I think otherwise, we've got our name.
Could I add my 2 cents real quick?
No. Yeah.
That's it. So
Yeah.
moved.
Voting is closed.
Please, yeah, Mike, go
Discussion
ahead.
has been closed. If I have the floor, I would
Yes.
just suggest that adding the word project to it is sometimes has a negative connotation with developments, like a project, like a housing project. That's people generally shy away from. KCLB Homecoming sounds awesome from my perspective, but just my 2 cents.
No, we don't need project. I agree. If you're okay with that, Nate.
Fine
Can
with me.
you put your
Yeah,
6
yeah.
there somewhere? KCLB Homecoming 6.
Okay, I have to wordsmith that. Okay, I will share that name with the rest of the board. Okay. So one idea I thought I had was that we talked about earlier this year, generally we're not writing grants just in terms of our fundraising for this year, but we did want to do a campaign earlier in the year to raise money. And so I thought maybe with the commencement of construction of the homecoming project, that would be a good time to announce the campaign and also announce a goal. And so we had originally announced that any money raised would be to buy down the purchase price of the homecoming homes. And Mike, is that still right? Is that still the right thing to do? Okay. So any thoughts on that approach? Does that sound good? Okay. And then Mike, I mean, I guess we're kind of already starting construction-ish, sort of, or like what's the?
Yeah.
I guess
the
it would be
construction
once we like sign the 2 contracts, right? Or
pulling permits and construction commencement is scheduled currently for July. So we have a little way for that.
okay. Okay. And then we had talked about a mixer. I sort of wanted to today define a location for that and also maybe a date as well. I think Mikey, Nate, did you put in Lone Wolf here?
I didn't write. Oh, Mike
Or,
did.
okay, Mike did. Okay.
But I
So
was thinking, what if are we planning on doing a groundbreaking event again like we did last time?
I think it would be a good opportunity.
because I mean, I don't want to cram. We should probably spread events out. At first, I was thinking, well, what if we did like a groundbreaking, and then we could have like a after the groundbreaking, come to Lone Wolf, and we could throw a fundraising element in. But that might just be throwing too much stuff all at once, and we probably want to spread it out a little more. But I don't know what the event looked like that you guys did at Kingston Standard a long time ago, but I don't know if maybe that's something we could approach the guy from Lone Wolf about.
Yeah, I mean the event, it was kind of just like a table. It's more like tabling. And announcing we were there, right? And we had some boards as well. So I don't know if I would call it an event. First, like it wasn't like a formal program. It was more being present.
Got it.
Yeah.
I
'Cause
mean,
I wonder if, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
no, I was just gonna say, I think there are two different vibes, maybe. It seems to me that if we do I don't know, I wasn't at the groundbreaking, whatever you call that word, but is that the word? Anyway, but it seemed to me that the opening of the house became a lot of politicians and people from the city and stuff came to speak, notaries, notables, people came to speak, and I wondered if the groundbreaking is like that, which is a little different vibe from something that's more social, like a mixer, that's more kind of meet the land bank, see what we do, hoist a stein with us or whatever, So
Yeah,
I don't know.
they're two very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I agree with what you're saying, Rebecca. Because to your point, the groundbreaking is very, in terms of the audience, it's very similar to like a ribbon cutting where, it's a fun event, but it's a lot of like notable politicians and thanking people who got us there versus like more engagement with the public and potential fundraising opportunities. So one thing I will say is when Mike and I went to Lone Wolf, they have a like a projector screen built in. So again, this is all pending like reaching out to him and actually them being on board with this. But I know one thing a lot of places do is we would basically have like a KCLB night and like a certain percent, if we could get them on board, like maybe a percent of the proceeds they would donate. Or if they're not willing to do that, we could just set up a table and try and get donations that way. But we'd bring people into the bar and we could do some kind of presentation on their projector and maybe include some kind of fun element too, like I don't know, like a trivia night or like something that is more just fun and social versus like just, hey, here's a lecture about what KCLB does, but here's some fun stuff too.
KCLB night sounds like really fun and a low key way for people to give to the city. If give to the land bank. You know what I mean? Like if you don't feel like you can give money to the land bank, but you could come have a drink with the land bank and some of that money would go to the land bank. That's how schools do it a lot in the Midwest anyway, like it's usually at the Culvers, but at the local hamburger and custard place.
I got that reference, Rebecca. Thank you.
But I think doing it at Lone Wolf is much more Kingston somehow and makes sense, So and it's not a school, so we're not bringing the school age kids, right? So I think that would be a fun event. And do you guys like the Lone Wolf? I picked up a flyer. I was like, oh, ooh, I drove by. It's a cool place. Is it?
It's a very
fun?
nice space.
Yeah, it's really cool. I vote for Lone Wolf. I'm walking distance, so it can't get better location for me.
So my only concern with Lone Wolf is it's kind of a little bit off the beaten path. And maybe I'm wrong about this. And it's also it's a cocktail bar. Like, is it approachable? Like, is it like approachable and like casual? Do you know what I mean?
I get what you
Like,
mean. They do have food.
Sure,
like
the
it's
vibe
not,
is like
it's
very
not just drinks. Like if you're not a drinker, are people going to be uncomfortable? And
well,
if
it's
you
just
bring
like
kids, then
is it like the vibe like high end?
I
Like
think
the one benefit with like the standard, it's like that one there's a lot of people coming and going, right? So we got to chat with a lot of people. And right, there was just like all kinds of people there, right? So is that, I don't know. I don't hang out at the
Kingston could
Lone
be
Wolf, so I'm
cool.
not sure. I'm sorry.
Camp Kingston, have you guys been, it's across from Keegan Ailes and near People's Place. And they have, it's a coffee shop during the day and then they offer, libations in the evening, but they do like a lot of community events, like they had like community bingo and they have different spaces. They have like a pool table in the back one room and then they have like a little media room. Could be another option and there's always people at Keegan's and you could get people to go from both venues, I think, to like check out what's going on.
For me, I just pick a date and then, make a priority list, like, just because, and throw spaghetti at the wall. Because
Yeah.
one of them's gonna say yes and one of them's gonna say no, or, somebody is
Right.
gonna jump on it and somebody's not gonna jump on it. So, it's not like we can choose. I mean, I was thinking of the Salt Box because it's one of the oldest buildings in Kingston. And it's, actually quite a low key bar, just barely a bar, actually. And I think they do different events and things like that. It's pretty plain. Have you guys been there? So it's in a fancy part of town, but it's not a fancy place at all, and it's old.
It's like more divey, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we should do just an outreach to a bunch of places and see if they would be up to sponsoring a night with KCLB in July.
Yeah, I would do that.
Is that
What if
okay?
we just, I don't want to, I'm not necessarily volunteering myself, but I'm happy to do it if nobody else wants to. If we just put together like a template email and then each of us takes like one place to reach out to and then we can circle back.
Yeah, I can start with it. I can start the template email.
Cool.
Bravo. So pick a day or a month. July is what we're talking about. I won't be here.
Oh, right. You won't be here. Well, do you want to, we could go for late June
Or September.
or September. September feels so far away, but
Not for the
Or all the
bar.
above. I mean, if we get
Right.
if we get multiple responses back or they say yes, like we
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
do it at a bunch of different places.
Yeah.
I mean, do it. Don't hold on for me. Do it in July, and then, we can do it again in September. Or October would be a different group of people because you won't have summer people.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
My
That sounds
favorite
great.
time of year so far in Kingston. So. It's not all those Brooklyn people.
I feel like they're coming up all year long. Doesn't matter what month it is. Always something to do in Kingston.
That's true.
Speaking of which, at least the next big one that I can think of, like community event, if we wanted to revisit the idea of like tacking on to a local event, is I think the Soapbox Derby, unless there's something else before that, probably 4th of July. I mean, there's a bunch of summer events.
Like Memorial Day weekend parade. Don't they have those?
Do we?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There, it's happening Monday.
Yeah.
Um,
A little too fast for us to nail something down.
the city is hosting a food truck festival on June 28th at 615 Broadway. I will be there tabling, regardless.
It's fun. When is it?
June 28th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And 15 Broadway is what?
615 Broadway. It's the vacant site, soon to be developed site next to the mobile station.
Next to the mobile station.
Yeah.
So no takers to like make a KCLB soapbox car and run it down the hill with me, or
And when is it?
I'm just kidding.
I'm like,
I think it's August 18th.
Like,
Yeah, I
can
think
you
it's an
can you use a glue gun to make a soapbox car? That's all the extent of my crafting.
I'm not going to be here, so that's why I didn't respond, Nate, but otherwise I would have been. It's always been my goal in life to do one of those.
I will be here. If you want to do it, I will volunteer my time.
Maybe Mike and you can hit up your buddies at PT Surplus to give us.
Oh, that's my
a
first
surprise.
thought. My absolute first thought. I would love to. No
We'll-
warranties on the soapbox. No warranties.
Yeah, we'll put their name on the side. They can sponsor. KCLB soapbox car sponsored by PT Surplus.
It'll be made out of 100,000 different kinds of screws. No two will match, but it'll be great.
I mean, I know it seems crazy, but maybe you want to offer the opportunity to work on the design and build of the car, the soapbox to the contractors that we work with.
I was
And they
mostly
could-
kidding
they could-
about
they
this
could-
idea, but I'm very happy that it's starting to get legs. So
Put stickers on it like you do in NASCAR, made, like make it, it could be, and have, no, I mean, it might be fun. I don't know how much fun, I suppose that the staff of the Kingston City Land Bank and all the contractors have a fun day every day when they're working on things with the land bank. Connor and Kyle, every day is full of joy, but might be fun to build something crazy,
As long as they don't correlate how the soapbox is built with how our homes are rebuilt.
that's a fair point.
In my experience to the soapbox every day, they don't really have to go. If they make it down the hill, that's all that really matters, right?
Okay, great. Does anyone have anything else that they wanted to bring up? Okay. Thanks all.
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn.
Thanks.
Second.
So moved. Bye. Take care.